they took my genitalia, and they wrapped it in cloth and in toilet paper, and then they duct taped all around. So I'm sitting there like this, all majestic in front of all these, um, extras who are just, village people, people that we picked up in the village we were in, and just staring at me, kneeling in water with this tape around my privates.
Because they just didn't want it because they're shooting you from behind. They just didn't want your junk hanging down in the shot.
Right.
Oh shit, that's funny.
They didn't want that doing. It was really cold too, so I'm glad they didn't.
I'm sure the tape made it all look great. Welcome to the Reinvention Podcast. I'm Aaron Anderson, and I'm talking with Lorenzo Callender, actor turned lawyer turned entrepreneur, and one of my oldest friends. So great to see you, man.
Oh, man, it's such a pleasure to see you, bro.
That's cool. You were born in Panama, you grew up in Hawaii, and you shot your first major film in China. Yeah,
I grew up, so my dad, the man who raised me, my dad, since I was 2, he met my mom in Panama. And so we were, I was kind of a military brat. We went back and forth between Hawaii and Panama, a little bit in California. You know how that goes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I grew up, went to school, Hawaii, TUH, and my first film was in China.
Yeah. I want to talk about, so you got into acting, and you and I did a play together, and we had sword fights and stuff like that. Macbeth and all kinds of other shit. And then you got cast by Shiwu doing Prince Lan Ling Wang in China, right?
Right. So actually, the first play I ever did before I was a theater major was with Sherwood. We did the play version of Lan Ling.
Did he write it?
Yeah, it's based off of an old Chinese myth. At least this is the story I've been told. Yeah. It's it was based off of an old myth in a Chinese myth, and to say he wrote it it's interesting because we didn't use language in that play.
No. Well, you use language, but you didn't use any known languages.
Any known language, yeah, right. So he put it together, and I was in his acting 1 class before I did anything acting. And then he came back the next semester and was like, "Hey, I'm back. Do you want to do this play?" And I said, "Sure." Let me drop everything and quit my job and let's do this play. And then about a year later, he came back and said, "I got the funding to do a movie. I'm only going to bring you from the cast. Do you want to go to China and shoot a movie?"
What was that like?
I was just about to turn 21, and I was like, "Yeah, let's go to China and shoot a movie."
And you did it in Mongolia, right?
No, so we shot all over in China. We didn't actually go to Mongolia. But we went to some places called Kunming, Baishuitai, Lijiang. I think Guangzhou was one of them. We just spent. I was there for 6 months, and we just drove on these buses to these random little towns in the middle of nowhere.
That's cool.
In China. That was really cool.
I remember you telling some stories about it. Like you had bulked up because you thought that that's what he wanted, right? But he wanted the lithe young person. So you had to cut a lot of weight.
Right. Yeah. So he told me, back then his words were, "Lorenzo, don't get fat."
Which you thought meant be muscular.
Right. So I hit the, I had like 3 months, before we left. So I was in the gym eating a lot, just getting, and he came back. He's like, "What are you doing? You look like a grown man." And, so Lan Ling is supposed to be actually, in the beginning, a very effeminate, almost character. Right in the beginning, and then he turns into this beast,
Oh man!
So he had to hide me from the producers when I was in China. So I was in China in his little apartment in Shanghai, and I was just by myself in this little apartment, and I would just cut weight like we did in wrestling for a week and a half.
So you're not drinking water, you're not eating, you're sweating.
Yeah. And then I ran in the streets once, and everybody was yelling at me. I didn't know what people were saying. So what I ended up doing in this little 1-bedroom apartment would just run around in the apartment for 4 hours. Doing jumping jacks and sweating. It was insane. But then the reason he wanted to hide me, because he said, if we wait 2 weeks, then there's no way they can replace you. So
he pulled a fast one.
He pulled a fast one. And then from then I had a month to lose more weight. So I just ran, I was running 5 miles in the morning, 5 miles at night, just starving myself. And Jesus I made
Man. And then you also, one of the more fascinating stories, because you and I did sword fights, right? In traditional Western style, we cast the energy, we're choreographing anything, and you said that the stunt guys there were just like, try and hit me.
Yeah. It was crazy. Yeah, because they were like professional stunt guys, and we had these swords, and they were like, no, just try to hit me. I'm like, oh. All right. I just did what I was told. Right. And they were good. I mean, nobody got hurt. I wouldn't recommend it,
but and you had some nude scenes, and I remember there's another funny story about having to have your wang tied up.
Yeah. So in the play I actually came down naked.
Right.
Which was crazy. But hopefully I was told it was silhouetted, but I don't
know. I'm sure the lighting was very flattering.
But in the movie, I had to do the same it's kind of like his birth into the whole thing.
Right.
And so I had to walk up this mountain, literal mountain, this white-faced mountain with a water running down it from the natural spring. So beautiful. But he said, you have to be naked. So what they did was they just, they took my genitalia and they wrapped it in cloth and in toilet paper, and then they duct taped all around. So I'm sitting there like this, all majestic in front of all these, extras who are just, village people that we picked up in the village we were in, and just staring at me, kneeling in water with this tape around my privates.
Because they just didn't want it because they're shooting you from behind. They just didn't want your junk hanging down in the shot.
Right.
Oh shit, that's funny.
They didn't want that doing. It was really cold too, so I'm glad they didn't.
I'm sure the tape made it all look great.
It was like a cod piece, it really looked like a duct tape cod piece.
I'm wearing one right now, man. Yeah. Duct tape cod piece. I think
we should bring them back.
Right. And then anyway, so then I see you on. I'm just watching television. I'm watching NCIS, and I see you, and I'm like, holy shit, Lorenzo, because you moved from Hawaii. Then you moved to Los Angeles, and you did the whole acting thing.
Right. Yeah. I moved out in '97, shortly after I graduated. I shot that. I shot another film in Hawaii and did some commercials and stuff, and I said, let's go play with the big boys. And I moved up to LA in '97.
I'm looking at your IMDb page, man. You were in all kinds of stuff. NCIS, The Deep End, Terminator, Salvation, Lie to Me, Medium, Hawaii, North Shore, The Hulk, Planet of the Apes, Ghost, Jag, West Wing, Bold and Beautiful. Dude, you did all the things.
Yeah, I did. I'm going to have to admit this. I think I got to come clean on this one. So for The Hulk, I'm actually not in it. I'm credited in it.
Yeah, you shot it. You ended up on the floor.
I didn't even shoot it. Oh. So what happened was we were on the set, and I had a fairly decent role, and we were on the set for 3 days, and they kept on telling us, "We'll get back to you. We'll get back to you. We'll get back to you." Ang Lee was directing, and then on the third day they said, "Sorry, but we've cut all your scenes."
Did they pay you?
Yeah, I still get paid.
All right.
I mean, yeah, because my name's in the credits. So
yeah, but you just don't have that film. So you were on it. You did all the things except the actual shoot. Right. That counts. Totally counts.
That counts. Good
so what was your favorite part about that point in your career? Because now you're talking about what, like 95 to 2010, like a 15-year period. of acting, right?
Well, it's probably more than that. So if you count from when I started in LA, or no, back to if you go back to when I started in LA, it was 97, and 2010, yeah. So 2010, I stopped pretty much. I retired.
Yeah. So you got a 13-year acting career, and you did well.
I did okay, man. I did okay. It's one of those things where, it never got to a point where I could quit my day job.
Right.
But there were some years that were amazing, and some years not so much.
What's your favorite memory of that time period, of that career period?
There's so many, but I think I have to just go back to the first one, flying to China.
Yeah.
And I turned 21 in China, and the experiences that I got there were invaluable. I mean, I was a theater actor, and I had no idea what it meant to be in front of a camera. So I remember the first thing we shot, and I went in thinking, I've done this role. I was Landing. I went to Vegas. I did all this stuff, no problem. And the first shot, Sherwood, who I credit with everything with me having a career, he came up to me. He was like, Lorenzo, this is not the stage. He's like,
were you like big?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And he was like, from one point, he just said, just look over there and don't think of anything. Just look over there. Just look. I was like, okay. So it was a crash course in filmmaking.
Right.
And just being, and this is 97, there was no email. I was writing letters to my family. Right. And Sherwood really took care of me. And one of the things he did was he said, I'm not going to talk to you unless we're on the set, because he wanted me to learn Chinese.
Oh, no shit.
And, yeah. So he didn't talk to me.
You had a crash course in acting and in Chinese.
By the time I left, I was giving interviews to the Chinese press in Chinese.
Get the fuck out of here.
No, true story.
Really? Wow. It's a notoriously difficult language to learn.
It is.
Oh.
But we had a lot of time, and I had co-stars who were next to me, and I just got a book, and we just they just taught me, and I had to learn because Sherwood wouldn't talk to me.
For anyone just tuning in, the movie we're talking about, you weren't just in it; you were the star of it, right? The whole thing is named after your character, and it's about your journey. So your first time in front of a camera was starring in an international film.
Yeah. Crazy.
Well, that's one way to do it. And then, so why'd you, and you were working, right? You were working quite a bit, it looks like. And so why did you, like you said, you retired. Why'd you retire?
So when I came to LA, I never wanted to give myself a time frame, right? It wasn't going to be like, if I don't make it in 5 years, I'm going to quit. I never thought that. I never wanted that for me. But I turned 34, and I came off of about 2 years of not working at all. And I was 34, and I did a play, and there was this amazing actor that was in the play with me here in LA, and he was in his 50s. He was a waiter. He was still driving an 85 Corolla, and no disrespect to him at all. He was amazing, and anybody's choices, no disrespect at all. But for me, my parents were getting older. I was still, had a day job. And I decided, let me see if I need to do something else that's more stable for me at this point in my life. I didn't want to be still running around my headshots at 55. Yeah. Not knowing what the next years were going to be like. I wanted some more stability. So then what I decided to do was, let me try to get into stunt work. That's more safe.
And how'd that go?
Not well. It's from what I gathered, there's it's hard to get into. It's really, if you need to get into a crew. Yeah. And I found a guy who I thought was going to do that, and a lot of people talk about what they're going to do. So and I was going to go to driving school. I was like, let me become a driver. And, like those guys work a lot if you can do that. But then that didn't work out, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And a friend of mine said, why don't you go to law school?
That's kind of random. Like, why? Stunt guy to law school.
Well, there's a reason behind his thinking, because during this time, when I first came to LA, I worked for a small production company as a creative consultant, worked on storylines and whatnot. That happened for about 4 years. And then I got into this company. The name of the company is called Parallax Education. What they do is they consult to companies on issues of harassment and discrimination in the workplace.
Okay.
Long story short, I spent 12 years doing that. And I eventually ended up teaching seminars,
as a consultant and like corporate trainer.
Right, exactly. And so, so I was already doing some legal-ish type stuff. Okay. And my friend was like, why don't you just do that? Why don't you go to law school? And I was like, well, yeah, why not?
Had it ever occurred to you? Like before he said, no, never?
Never, man. If you would have told me I'd be a lawyer one day, I would have laughed in your face. There's no way.
So how do you make that jump from, yeah, that's a good idea, to actually like enrolling in law school? Like that's a pretty big mind shift.
Well, the first thing I did was I called some of my old professors. I called Terrence Knapp.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I called Terry. I called him and I told him, I was like, Terry, I'm thinking about, I'm not making a living really much these past couple of years. I'm thinking about going to law school, but all I've done was act. It's like, this is everything to me. What do I, he said, Lorenzo, he says, there's three stages in this world. There's a theater, there's the church, and there's the courtroom. He's like, you're just using your skills for a different stage.
That's spectacular. Of course he said that. Yeah, of course the words of wisdom drip from Terry. You'd have to do it with his accent and his sort of the lightness of it.
Right.
I can just say, dear boy, yeah. there are three stages. And you're like, oh yeah. The theater, the church, and the courtroom.
Yeah.
And so when he told you that, were you like, bing, bing, bing?
It helped a lot, because I was torn. Some of my friends were like, "What are you doing? You're giving up on your dream. You're doing this," and part of me felt like that. So what am I? I'm just giving up on everything I ever wanted.
Yeah.
But then I told one of my friends, like, my dream is to be able to help my family if my parents need it in the future. That's my dream.
Right. Well, and that's what we're told in the arts too, right? You're supposed to sacrifice for your art, and you're supposed to whatever, and you're supposed to never quit, never give up. And that's, like you said, at a certain point, you're driving an old car and you don't have health insurance, and you're like, yeah, that's why I stopped acting, because it's just so hard. It's a grind, doing it, like, actually the day on set is fun, but the grind of always getting turned down and putting your head out there and all that sort of stuff.
Right. And it really became it started to become more business, and for me, and probably maybe one of the reasons why I even, in looking back, it's like why maybe I didn't get certain things, because I came so close to so many really, really big things that I could just taste it, it was like, but I think a part of it was I was desperate at that point too. I was like, I need to get this job. I need to get this job. Oh, yeah. And I think there may have been an era of desperation in me towards the end,
Yeah, that stink of desperation.
Right. But yeah, so then I told, like, another friend of mine said, because I was like, I feel like I failed. And he was like, what are you talking about? It was like, you've done more than anybody I know, and you're still in your plays here, and you're doing commercials and you're doing this. It's like you've already done it,
Right.
It's like you haven't failed. You did it. You're just doing something else now. And so I talked to a lot of people, and then I talked to another director friend of mine, Luis Avalos, who's a great director here, and all he did ever in his life was act. And he said, he goes, I know you can act. And he's like, but then when I told him, he was like, it's okay, Lorenzo, you'll be back. He's like, go do what you need to do now.
and then law school, right? Mm-hmm. And was Terry right? Do you ever get in the courtroom, or what a lot of people don't know is that law is not, right, the Perry Mason in front of the room. It's a lot of writing papers and memos and
Right, exactly. So my whole thing was that, right? I only went to law school because I wanted to be like, objection, you know,
right. Yeah, the good stuff.
the good stuff. That's what I wanted to do, right? Law school is nothing like that. There was a lot of reading and writing. But there was, my whole thing was I wanted to get on the trial advocacy team, right? The team that does like mock trials and like you get up and you actually do that openings and closings. I was like, man, I got this, you know, I'll do that. So I went to the class, you know, the first class we did, and I went up and I did my best Denzel, and and my teacher was like, now that's how you advocate, right? So in my mind, I was like, all right, this is what I'm doing. I got this. So came time to actually compete to see who would be on the team, right? And I went, same thing I thought, and I didn't make it out of the first round.
Really?
Yeah.
Why was that?
I didn't make it. I don't know. I don't know. I didn't, like, you know, people that were in my class that, you know, guys, with no disrespect, guys who couldn't talk their way out of a paper bag, went to like the third round, fourth, whatever. I didn't make it out of the first round. And I think in a bigger picture, it's exactly what was supposed to happen.
Okay.
Right. For me. Because now being where I'm at now, I don't want to be a trial lawyer. Those guys work way too hard.
Yeah, man. Yeah, you gotta be stupid prep, because it's not actually in front of the room. It's the prep, so that you can go when you got to go.
Right. That's just the little bit at the end. You know, the amount of time and effort and research and writing and hours that you have to put in. I do not want to do that.
Right. So what kind of law do you practice?
So I do workers' compensation. So I do workers' comp. I started off on the defense side, you know, defending the insurance companies. Okay. I did that for
because they have the money.
Right. And so it was great. It was a great job coming out of school. You know, I had great teachers there, great mentors there, partners that really helped me out. And I stayed there for 6 or 7 years, and I never thought I thought that's what I was going to do. Never thought I would have my own firm. And then things changed.
So you're working for someone else. You're a lawyer. Now, what I've heard that the amount of hours you put in, like if you build yourself hourly, like if you got the pay for the amount of time you put in, that you'd be working basically minimum wage, just because you're just it's a lot of work.
Right. It is a lot of work. And because, you know, you have a certain amount of billable hours you have to get every month, you know, hours that you can actually bill the client. Right. But sometimes I could spend, if there's something I don't know, I could spend 3 hours researching an answer, but
you can't bill that.
I can't bill that. I can bill maybe 30 minutes or, you know, something like that. And, you know, as you get further in your career and you know the answer, it becomes a lot quicker. But in the beginning, you don't know anything, you know? In fact, people think, you know, like after law school, you don't know how to be a lawyer after law school. They just give you the language, and then you learn to be a lawyer really when you go to your jobs.
Yeah. And so you were hired by a firm?
Yeah, I was actually one of my professors in law school gave me a shot to intern or to what they call be a law clerk. While I was still in law school. Oh, that's cool. And then, he was really cool. He was great. He was really great to me. And so then that just rolled over into a job once I graduated.
So what's your favorite part of that part of your career? Getting paid.
You know what? It was one of my favorite moments was when they I had a little cubicle and they put up my name in like a gold plaque in black letters on my cubicle.
Did it say Esquire?
You know, I wasn't because I was still waiting on I was still like waiting on bar results.
But you had your name. You had your name on your desk.
I had my name on the desk, and it was great. And you know what? It was just, you know, at the time, and it still might be the largest firm in LA. It was such a feeling of accomplishment to have gone through law school. I mean, I was at least 10 years older than most everybody that was there. Well, I'll take that back because I went to school at night. And a lot of the night people were a little bit older because people had
because they had other jobs.
Yeah, we had to pay rent still.
Yeah. Did your colleagues know that you were an actor?
So it came up because I was still auditioning during the day, and so I got I got like 2 or 3 jobs while I was in school.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so one day I'm in class. It's like, hey, were you on a show like last night? And I was like, oh yeah, that was me. And I think it was The Deep End, and that was a lawyer show. Funny enough.
Funny, man.
So yeah, so they found out, but there was actually like while I was in law school, there was actually an actual famous lawyer that was going to school with us in night school. He pulled me aside. He's like, you better not get more famous than I do.
So every time I see there's an actor, he's on The Walking Dead, Seth Gillian. Right. Every time I see that guy, I'm like, Lorenzo should have that job. Right.
People have asked me that, said that often. Like, you look just like that guy.
Yeah. Well, he's got a good career. And there's a lot
He's got a great career.
Right. You could be on Breaking Bad. You could have been Tuco. I mean, there's a lot of parts for your type. Right. Did it ever hit you like your day is so much different now? Right. It's so much different than what you were doing. Or is it just you're just in the middle of it and you're working. You just don't have time to reflect like that?
I don't think I really have reflected like that. The interesting thing is I've never before being a lawyer, I never had like a real 9 to 5, have to clock in type of job.
Right.
Even when I worked at the consulting thing, the agreement was that if I needed to go on audition, I could go on auditions, and if I needed to go work, I could go work and then come back. My boss was really cool about that. I've always been able to get these jobs in these situations where I could come and go basically as I needed to.
Right.
And even when I worked at the law firm, except for the time where I was a law clerk, like when I was an actual lawyer there, nobody was over my shoulder. Nobody was, so I really had independence and a freedom that came. So that I've always had that, and I think that's part of being an actor too is that I had the freedom, except for like rehearsals and like. Basically, nobody micromanaged me, but when it's time to make sure you know your lines, you
do the thing.
Your lines.
Yeah, you got it on. Well, and you're valued because you're trusted, because you're trustworthy, and you get the thing done. I did a gig one time, and I was supposed to give a keynote, and it was like at the last minute, and they were giving me more details. I was like, "Hang on, I got to rehearse this." And they said, "You'll be great. You're always great." And I was like, "That's not magic." Like the reason I'm great is because I'm prepared. You got to give me this shit up front. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's the same thing. It's like, same thing, if you're on time, you're late.
Right. Right.
If you're early, you're on time. So that kind of thing, that work ethic, at least that I picked up in school, I think, actually. They really drill that into, at least that's what I picked up, it's like, make sure, you're off book, make sure you're, you're going over the stuff. It's not just rehearsal. It's, you got the work you do outside of rehearsal. It's so that ethic, I kind of just brought with me and I think it served me well.
That's awesome. So you've gone from being a successful actor, you're going into, now you're a successful lawyer, and then you change careers again. And now and this is what strikes me. Right? Acting, one of the least secure jobs in the world, right? There's a lot of work and there's a lot of people who want to be actors and very few people who make it. Lawyers, not that much better, man. There's a lot of people who want to be lawyers. Not that many people actually getting paid to be lawyers. And now you're like, you know what? I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to start my own company because what could possibly, like, you're just like a risk fiend or something. Like, tell me about Callender Law.
My wife is an attorney as well.
So you were married. So when you're working as a lawyer, is that when you got married?
Yeah. We met in law school.
Okay.
We started dating the last 2 months of my law school career.
Okay.
So anyway, so we were married and about to have a kid, and we started thinking about it. Like she brought it. I don't know who brought it up actually. Because I think I was getting tired of the long hours. I think I was getting tired of, I used to bring home boxes of stuff to review just stack of subpoenas that you just have to read through.
Right.
And it's also, you talk about like, putting in the hours and making the money. But, a lot of that money, like what they bill you out at, what you actually get as your salary is not the same.
Right. It's being filtered. It's being filtered by a firm that's
right.
You are their product.
Right. Exactly. So, and that's just the nature of the industry. That's just how it works. So we decided together that, maybe it's time for me to go on my own and just to do my own thing and to be my own boss. And to get the fruits of my labor just directly to myself. It was serendipitous because when my first daughter was born, we were going to stay at my in-laws for a month so my wife could be there with her mom.
Okay.
We ended up staying there for 2 years, right?
Right.
So, but we at that beginning we said, if we're going to do this, let's do it now, because we'll be staying with your parents. We have a roof over our head. We have food. What else do we need? Where our baby's good. Like, if we're gonna jump, let's jump now. So I believed in myself. My wife believed in me, and she had a steady paycheck coming in. So I'm like, let's go. Let's do it now.
So you use that word jump, and is that what it felt like? Like jumping off of something into something?
Yeah, it really did, because I had no idea what I was doing, and I switched sides. So I now represent the actual injured worker.
What's involved in starting a law firm?
That's a good question, man. What I did was I just asked everybody who had already done it, right? Don't reinvent the wheel. Let's see how everybody else did it. And for me, it was just like any business, you got to incorporate, you got to, get phones and whatnot. The biggest thing is, where do you get your clients?
Where did you get your clients?
So I didn't know what I was going to do at first. And then a friend of mine gave me, like, hey, there's a couple of Spanish speaking potential clients. I don't speak Spanish. They want somebody who speaks Spanish. Do you want to do this? That was my first 2 clients. Oh. And then, so I did that. And then I was thinking about how to market or whatever. And then somebody else referred me another client just out of nowhere. And then there was this group of guys who I used to work with who do defense work.
Okay.
And they're like, we can't do the other side, but we get people calling us all the time. Why don't you, why don't we give them to you, and then I'll kick them a referral fee, and we'll just kick them to you, and then you can handle them. So I was basically just handed a bunch of clients and an office in their building. It was crazy.
So you'd been doing this kind of law before, just the other side. So you knew all the paperwork, you knew all the steps, you knew all the things. You just didn't have. I mean, there's a whole business chunk of things that you like. How the hell did you learn that?
I just asked people. I just asked people who had already done it. Like, what's the first step? What's the next step?
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Which computer did you get? Which scanner did you get?
Right.
I thought I wanted to be fancy and get color ink. Everybody said, "Are you crazy?" It was like, what's this going to cost you? It's like, no, black and white ink. That's it. I was like, oh, okay. So good. That's good to know. Which voice over IP am I going to use? Yeah. How do I come up with a logo? All this stuff that that you just have to do, which I assume is what you have to do in any business.
I consult with a lot of businesses. I've never consulted with a law company, but I mean, a lot of it's the same. You have money coming in, you get money going out, and hopefully you got more money coming in and going out. And then but you also have layers and layers of infrastructure you've got to build, and investment you've got to make, and you've got to in most small businesses, cash flow is king, right? You got to have the cash in, and now you're defending people. So how do you get the cash flow? So
I'm not defending people. I'm actually.
You're working as advocates. You're working as their advocates.
Yeah, as advocates. Yeah. So what I did in the beginning was I actually hit up a bunch of guys who have successful firms already, and I talked to them and say, hey, if you need somebody to sit in on a deposition for you or whatever, let me know. So the good thing was I never wanted to take from any of our savings or anything to put into the firm. I wanted to be self-sufficient. So I would develop my business, but then also do this side thing where I would go and defend depositions defend depositions. So like some of the guys I knew, their firms are kind of big and in the mid-size to biggish, and they just had too many depositions. They couldn't go to all of them.
Okay.
So they hired what they call contract attorneys, right? So attorneys who don't have their own thing, but would sit in for you, represent the client for you.
So you're bootstrapping. You're getting money in and then feeding it into the business and letting the business grow only as fast as it can.
Right.
With what you got.
Right.
And how big are you now?
I'm not that big. It's just me and I have 2 paralegals that we have 3 little offices in a building, and that's on purpose. My wife and I had this conversation. I could get bigger if I want. I think if I wanted to, but I don't work weekends.
Oh,
and I'm with my family.
Yeah.
So that's really important for us. I didn't want to leave a big firm just to work the same amount of hours.
Right.
So we decided that together again, we decided that we don't have to be super huge. I make more money than I did at my other firm, so I'm good. We're good. My wife makes good money. She's a lawyer. We're good.
That comes back to that. What does it mean to make it? Right? Because you were as an actor, you were like, I haven't, I'm failing. I haven't made it. I mean, you made it. I'm looking at your IMDb. You did make it, right? What's the end goal? Is the end goal just to work more? What you're doing now is you have a business so that you can have a life rather than the other way around, right?
Right. Yeah. And again, this is just me, right? This is just me and my wife. We have to do what we feel what's best for us. And I got 2 little kids, man.
Yeah.
And so it's like I want to be there for them. And not to knock anybody else, because look, the big firms and all that's great, and it's a lot of exciting stuff going there, and it was really exciting to be in that environment. I did that, but now I'm good just having my little firm and making a decent living
and being able to spend time with your kids and your wife, and God, that's money can't buy time. Money can't buy any of that back.
Right, and so it's so for me that was the most important thing. And my wife right now, I mean, I'm in her office at home. She works at home. Well, she might have to start going back a little bit because she works at a pretty decent sized firm, and she loves it. My wife really loves it. I never thought I'd be a lawyer. My wife knew she was going to be a lawyer since she was in elementary school.
Right. Well, it sounds like you got a great partner too, because she trusted you, and you all made that decision together and all that. That's fantastic, man.
Yeah, she's amazing, man.
I end all these podcasts with the same question, which is if you could, so where you are now, looking back, right? Imagine there's somebody who is where you were. What advice would you give them about how to get to where you are now? Or same question phrased a different way. If you could go back in time and give yourself, your past self, 21-year-old Lorenzo self, some advice, what would it be?
So I think I would tell myself to trust this thought that I had was, once you feel that you're on the right path, go down that path with everything you got, with no safety net, but keep your eyes open for a fork in the road, and be willing to explore that. So I think that's important. Like if you see something, like I always felt that I was on the right path when I was doing the acting thing.
Yeah.
And and I was like, I'm going to do this. But I was open enough to see when it was time for me to take another path.
To pivot a little bit.
Yeah, not to be afraid to do that. To go down with, don't second guess you. Like, go down and do what you're doing, with all you got. But be open.
Yeah.
Be open.
Yeah. And don't define success by what other people say it should be.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Or even what I thought it would be,
Yeah. Yeah. Do you feel at home in your heart? Do you feel like, yeah, this is right? Do you still feel that?
I do. But there's a friend, my director might not be totally wrong. I may not be done yet.
Well, you don't have to be, right? You're not a slave to your job anymore, right? Your job is a slave to you.
Right. And that's the thing, is like, I've put myself in a position where I have time now. So
that's awesome. So you can live your life instead of work for your life.
Right. And I can explore other options if I want to, because that desperation is no longer there for me. I'm settled. So I'm good.
That's awesome. Dude, I love you so much. I miss you so much.
Me too, man. Me too. Can I just say, man, it's like when I don't know if I've ever told you this, if you ever knew, man, but you were like one of like the dudes I really looked up to when I was in college, man. Like you were, man. You were, because for me, you were like such a good example of like, I was like, I want to be like that guy. Like, how does he know how to do that stuff, man?
Oh, that's funny.
You know, like, and when we did Macbeth, one last thing I have to share this with you, man. I don't know if you know, there's like when we were doing our fights, and you taught me how to do this, where you kneed me in the face, and I went backwards. Yeah. Put your hand here and let me do the whole thing. Go down, go up, go down, and then I flew back.
Yeah, and the audience freaked out every night. Remember, we had a camera in the back, and after you did that, the bleachers shook because you leaped backwards, man.
But I used that in a film and in another play. That same thing.
I want my royalties.
Right. It's like I did it. You can actually see it on the movie I did in Beyond Paradise, called Beyond Paradise in Hawaii. I used that when I was in the fight scene. You'll if you ever see it, you'll see it there.
Oh, that's cool. That's great. Yeah. You were, we couldn't have done that except you were you were so athletic and just sold it. Like you sold, and we had to stop. Like because we originally had it, you got hit and then we kept going. But we had to pause so you could roll down stage so the audience knew you were okay, because it was so real. It was so real, man. They freaked out.
That's one of my highlights. Yeah, man. But yeah, man. You really I really looked up to you, bro.
Oh,
honestly, and I still do, man. I follow you too, and it's amazing what I see you doing, man.
I appreciate that. That's I take no responsibility. You got bad taste, but I appreciate it. I got love for you.
Me too, brother.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna stop this podcast ready, and we go now. Visit reinventionpodcast.com for transcripts and other free resources.